You know, I've seen a lot of strange and bizarre things in the sport of track and field. I've seen over-the-top predictions that shocked the world. I've seen a false start that still rattles my brain every time I think about it. I've seen a world record go down that, on paper, really should not have been possible. And just recently, I saw a 26.2-mile race that took more than 2 hours and 8 minutes to complete come down to 0.03 seconds at the finish in New York City. A time frame that literally required a photo finish to decipher the champion. In sports, the only thing that you should expect is in fact the unexpected. But what happens when you get something so unexpected that it becomes a problem? Well, then you get something like this year's World Athlete of the Year award. Because despite having many of the greatest runners, jumpers, and throwers on the planet competing for the coveted position as the world's greatest, this process is quickly proving to be absolutely broken. And somehow, two athletes in particular, who had arguably the greatest seasons in their event's history, didn't even make the cut. This is a problem, but how bad does it really get? Now, every year we see seasoned veterans and new faces light up the track on the biggest screens with their performances, and at some point, some athletes are expected to do great. There's Noah Lyles dominating the 200, there's the big three in the men's 400 hurdles, and of course, there's Mondo Duplantis in the pole vault, robbing both World Athletics and Red Bull by breaking what seems to be more than 50 world records in any given season. We know who is set to find success during most track and field seasons, but in 2025, we had a few athletes who completely changed their event's history. Here are the original nominees for both male and female track athletes of the year. On the men's side, all of these top 5 were world champions, they had incredible stories, and they took huge wins. But ultimately, the top 2 came down to Emmanuel Wanyonyi in the men's 800 and Noah Lyles in the men's 200 meters. Now, personally, I think that Cordell Tench in the men's 110 hurdles also would have been a solid nominee for the top 2 here as well. At least these top 2 in Lyles and Wanyonyi had great seasons as well, and most agreed that these 2 were solid nominees for World Track Athlete of the Year. But my goodness, what happened on the women's side is the exact opposite situation. Out of these top 5, take a guess at who ultimately made it into the top 2. Go ahead, I'll give you all a few seconds. Well, the top 2 have been named as Cindy McLaughlin-Levrone and Femke Bol of the Netherlands. Now, before we go into detail on why this is receiving so much hate and so much negativity, let's give credit where credit is due. Both Bol and Levrone had amazing seasons. Bol went undefeated in the 400 hurdles, she won multiple European gold medals, and she also won the world champs in the 400 hurdles as well. And for McLaughlin, she broke the American record, and she also ran the second fastest time in 400 history, achieving a mark of 47.78. These 2 are certainly some of the best athletes in the world, and their 2025 seasons were incredible. However, these other 3 had seasons that were so mind-bogglingly incredible that it makes sense as to why so many people are genuinely upset. First, let's start with Melissa Jefferson Wooden. What she did this year in the 100 meters is honestly hard to describe. She went undefeated, she took massive wins, she ran under 10.8 more times than Florence Griffith Joyner back in 1988, and then to top it all off, she broke the championship record with a time of 10.61 seconds, making her officially the 4th fastest woman of all time, and my goodness, just look at this margin of victory. Nobody was even close. Now, in addition to making history in the women's 100, she also took a massive win in the women's 200, and then she topped off the trifecta by taking a gold medal in the women's 4x1. This makes Wooden one of the very few athletes to ever win the 100, the 200, and the 4x1 in the same global final. And not to mention, her consistency and incredible margins of victory are virtually unmatched. And yet, with all of these accomplishments, which easily outrank both Bol and McLaughlin-Levrone, she was not given a position in the top 2. If you go on World Athletics page and take a look at when Cindy McLaughlin-Levrone and Femke Bol were given the position as the top 2, you can see that many people are upset. You've got Masai Russell, the 2024 Olympic champion in the women's 100 hurdles, expressing her shock that there was no Melissa. You've got someone claiming that this is a daylight robbery. You've got another saying that Melissa Jefferson Wooden being left off as a finalist is blasphemy. And we should also mention that these comments are getting a lot of traction because this is genuinely a shock to many. You can go down this list and find literally more than 100 comments expressing frustration on why Melissa Jefferson Wooden was not included in the top 2. And the exact same thing can be said about Beatrice Chebet. Now, we've talked about Beatrice Chebet's season this year, and she honestly had one of the best years ever. It's not even close when looking at the distance runners this season. Her season was completely and utterly unmatched. She won the 5,000 meters in the World Champs. She won the 10,000 meters in the World Champs. She broke the 5,000 world record by running a 13:58, which makes her the first woman in history on the track to break 14. She also broke the 5K world record on the roads with a time of 13:54. And not to mention, she genuinely had one of the greatest kicks in history when she took her gold medals in the 5,000 and the 10,000. The only moment where Beatrice Chebet showed any kind of vulnerability was kind of a misleading situation. While she was not undefeated this season in the 10,000 meters, as she finished 3rd in this year's Kenyan Nationals, this was only because she just needed to qualify into the World Championships. She easily could have won this race, but she decided to jog in for the finish. And if she wanted to take the win, my guess is that she easily could have done so. It's quite bizarre to me that both Chebet and Melissa Jefferson Wooden were not given a position in the top 2. And the final athlete that many people are expressing even more frustration that she didn't make it was Faith Kipyegon from Kenya. Now, when it comes to 1,500 meter royalty, Kipyegon is easily number 1. She is the world record holder, she's been undefeated since 2021, and she is the first woman in history to win 3 Olympic golds in the 1,500 and 4 individual world championships in that event. Faith Kipyegon in 2025 100% cemented her name as the undisputed GOAT in the 1,500. Just take a look at this margin of victory in the World Champs. And we should also mention, she too broke a world record, as she broke her own 1,500 world record in the Prefontaine Classic. Not to mention, she ran her 1-mile exhibition in Paris, France, that also resulted in an unofficial world record. If being undefeated, breaking world records, and winning the global final wasn't enough, then I genuinely don't know what is required for an athlete like Faith Kipyegon to reach such an elite level as World Athlete of the Year. But for this season, it somehow happened. Many are expressing frustration that World Athletics and this entire process has nothing to do with accolades and accomplishments, because it's more of a popularity contest. If you have the poll online, and if you have the audience that somehow votes, then you automatically get the win. It makes sense why so many are frustrated that these top 2 are in fact the finalists when the other athletes broke more records and had more dominance and total races. But the strange thing about this situation is that people online who cast votes don't actually have that big of a say in the process. Now, we've gone over how these athletes reach this position, and 75% of the total vote ultimately comes down to World Athletics and the World Athletics family. And side note, I still have no clue what the World Athletics family actually is. Maybe there's a multi-billion-dollar family somewhere that invests in World Athletics that gets to say who they want to win. I don't know how this works, but it's still bizarre to me. Either way, only 25% actually comes down to individual democratized votes online. So while many people are claiming that Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone and Femke Bol only made it here because people voted for them online, that's actually not the case. So perhaps there is some kind of favoritism going on. And again, both McLaughlin-Levrone and Bol had incredible 2025s, but I can easily understand why so many people are upset that Melissa Jefferson Wooden, Faith Kipyegon, and Beatrice Chebet were left off of this list. Now I would love to hear from all of you about this situation. What do you think about the World Track Athlete of the Year? Who do you think should be in the top 2 on the women's side? And also, leave your thoughts on who you think should be in the top 2 on the men's side. And also, who do you think should ultimately win as Track Athlete of the Year? Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.